Hello and welcome to T2RL Talks, the final conference special edition for 2025. And it's the final edition because last week was Engage 2025, which took place at the Sancroft Conference Centre in London. And it was bigger and better than any before. To talk about our impressions and our takeaways from the conference, I've got Ian Luck, head of our distribution practice, Bert Craven, deputy CEO and head of technology, and new girl, Amanda Campbell, who is head of research. And all of us were at the conference last week. And in fact, all of us were at the conference last year. And so I just want to start with some comparisons. I said it was bigger and better than ever. Do we all agree with that? Ian?
Absolutely. We were in a new venue, as anybody that attended witnessed, and it worked really well. It enabled us to bring in another 100 or so people, which was great. We'd outgrown the other venue, and although the previous location was a fantastic spot in Westminster, this time we were right by St.Pauls, and I think the new modern venue worked really well.
Okay, I agree with that. Now, Amanda, you were there last year as a delegate. This year you were there as part of the family. How did you feel it went?
Yeah, it was amazing, Ian. I think this year we had 200 airline delegates representing 62 unique airlines. So that was, it was very thrilling to be part of, something bigger and better than had gone before. I think someone told me that the total airline guests represented 47% of the global passenger traffic in PBs. So, it was a very exciting place to be.
That's right. And I've got those numbers in front of me as well. And yes, almost half the world's airline business was represented there, which I think is a pretty good achievement. Bert, your thoughts on the event?
Well, I echo everyone else's comments, actually. I think, it definitely bigger and better. It's a bit like trying on new clothes for the first time in terms of the venue. We're learning a new space and what its benefits and limitations are. There were some issues with the AV and that kind of thing, but it's all things that we can easily fix for next year. So, I'm really encouraged. I'm particularly encouraged by the feedback we've had. Actually, while we were there, people coming up and saying, this is amazing, this is fantastic, and so on. But also since then, all kinds of notes and emails and comments and praise for the event on LinkedIn and so on. The feedback has been absolutely outstanding. So very pleased,
The couple of things I think I'd add. One was lots of people talked about how many other people were there that they wanted to talk to. Somebody said they did 10 meetings in one day. And somebody said it took them half an hour to walk from one room to another because they met so many people on the way that they wanted to talk to, which I think they wanted to go and see some of the content, but they also met just all these fantastic people. The other thing I was going to add was we had lots of, probably more than we've ever had different airlines on stage talking about what they're actually doing. Some airlines that I don't think I'd ever seen on a stage talking about what they're doing, and there was some really interesting presentations from Riyadh Air to Fly Dubai to all kinds of interesting airlines.
To Ryanair.
To Ryanair, indeed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
From Riyadh Air to Ryanair.
But this was good. And Ian, do you want to give us the Peter Velitas comment?
Yes. We've invited travel sellers the last few years to the conference, a selection of those people to bring into the conversation, because we think particularly that as airlines are developing new technology, working with vendors, they need to be talking and getting input from travel sellers. So we've had a number of people attend. Yes, one of our travel sellers, Peter Velitas from Internova Group, says he tells other people that this is the conference where the smart people go. And if you want to talk to the people, there's lots of other events where there's lots of great people there. But particularly if you're interested in kind of our subject of airline technology and distribution, then this is the place to come to talk to the people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah, we did wonder whether we could trademark that, and Probably not, but it's an interesting thought.
No, but I think it's a reflection of the quality of content and the quality of discourse. And it does have sort of quite a sort of family atmosphere. I was trying to get into the venue on Tuesday morning, and the sort of the area where people arrive and queue up to get their passes was just full of people hugging. And so, oh my God, I haven't seen you in ages. You know, it's just like a get together of friends. And the whole thing has a really nice sort of intimate atmosphere, I think, and we haven't lost that moving to a different venue. I mean, that was one of my concerns, is that we would suddenly somehow be rattling around in a space and lose that intimacy, but actually it worked really well.
Yeah, and I think that's an important point. We've moved to a bigger venue, but it's not 3 or 4 times the size. It's 20% bigger. And I don't think we've got any ambitions in the future we can foresee to increase the numbers much beyond what we had this time.
No, and certainly it felt permanently full. you were constantly excusing yourself and pushing past people and so on to get from room to room. So
yeah, I think the events that have got sort of thousands of delegates, they're different. They serve a purpose as well, but they're different. Our event is one where we want to encourage the not just the presentations from the stage, but the dialogue and the discussions between the delegates. And I think once you get beyond a manageable size, that gets a lot more difficult.
Yeah, you might say we want people to engage.
Yeah, could be something in that. Let's talk about the content a little bit. The theme of the conference was delivering on the promise, and the premise there was that the move to offers and orders in the airline industry is now baked in. It's going to happen one way or another. And we wanted to look at how airlines and the technology vendors are delivering on the promises made by the move to OSD. And just a little refresher, those promises are improved revenue, improved efficiency, better customer experiences, more flexibility, and innovation. So my view was that the presentations from the stage certainly did address really all of those things at one time or another.
Yeah, I think that there is an element of things becoming real now. I mean, I can't remember how long we've been talking about being able to change the passenger booking experience and the idea of a kind of non-homogeneous order versus a P&R and that kind of thing. And I was lucky enough to have a little bit of a preview from Raghu of some of the work that they've done on their booking experience and their mobile app, and it's absolutely real what you can do now. I'm not going to give anything away because there's obviously they're going to have a big launch, but all of the things that certainly we've been talking about since 2022 when we first started trying to procure these services are becoming real. So I think it's when we talk about delivering on the promise, these are those early signs, those early shoots coming up of saying there's actually something here. And I think the same goes for other things like, things that aren't as immediately visible, but what we're hearing anecdotally about things like dynamic pricing and so on, this is about delivering on the benefits.
Yeah. And we had the thing I mentioned at the end of the conference that somebody said to me was that, when people like Riyadh Air, but other airlines as well, Pegasus and Flydubai and other people were putting things like architecture diagrams on the screen and everybody was taking photos of this thing that's now real that somebody else is doing that they're really interested in. And I think that was definitely a case of the promises starting to be delivered, at least.
Yes. And I think also, I had a really good conversation with Sam Chamberlain where he was talking about when they'd started on the delivery work at Riyadh Air, and all they really had was this reference architecture that sort of said, well, it'll look something like this with these boxes here. And the work that they've done really to add the first layers of concrete reality to what was really just a diagram of an idea a few years ago. And
Flydubai's in-house version, Pegasus and Hit. Amadeus, Finnair, we're sort of seeing lots of places now where this thing is starting to become real, even if it's, not industry wide, and that's going to take years and years. We are starting to see the movement happening.
Yeah, and this is the sort of thing that's making us look to our laurels in the way that we track movements in the industry and market for the technology services, because we've had the first 20 years of T2RL, and by the way, this was our 20th anniversary conference. We've had the first 20 years where we had a pretty settled architecture around PSS and the systems that hung off it. I think now we're in a much more fluid stage of development. I think the big picture is established, but the way that the next level down the diagram is going to be populated is still very much up for grabs. There are still variations and different approaches, and we saw some of them being highlighted at the conference.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But personally, I think that's one of the benefits of the transformation journey that airlines are on. It's the modularity, the interoperability, and the openness of the systems, which are allowing airlines to really chart their own paths towards the future. And sometimes I think that's even more important than the architecture diagrams in terms of what box goes where. It's allowing airlines the freedom, I think, to craft their own strategy and their own direction while staying interoperable with the partners, which is obviously key.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a mixed blessing. I mean,
it is.
If you, we know, for instance, that a lot of the deals that have been announced in OOSD are not for everything. So a deal has been announced. They said it's an OOSD deal. It's for this vendor's platform or that vendor's platform. But we know that it's not for all of it. So this modularity had better come true, right? Because people aren't buying everything in one go. I mean, some airlines are, but other airlines are choosing to keep their options open significantly in certain areas. And I think Ian's point about this next level down is, for the last 20 years, we've been measuring, who is the provider of PSS to airline X. And we break that down and we say inventory, reservations, and departure control. But in 99% of cases, it's the same provider for those three things. DCS maybe being the most common exception. But, now we get into offer, order, settle, deliver, and we have to look at these things and say, what's the right level to measure this at? Do we say this vendor is a provider of offer to this airline? And then we say, well, actually, there's somebody else who also provides offer to this airline. Or do we go down another level and say, no, this vendor is providing offer construction, and this vendor is providing offer optimization, and this vendor is providing, offer presentation or something like that. And it's about finding, first of all, a level that makes sense to people, but also a level at which we can reasonably gather data.
Amanda and I are responsible for doing that within T2RL now. And it is a challenge, but it's a challenge that we relish because it's a sign that the industry is evolving and developing these new solutions. Speaking of modularity, we haven't yet touched very much on the S of OOSD, the settlement. And for the first time at Engage 25, we ran a whole stream, only a half a day, but nevertheless a whole stream dedicated to payments. And I think we got some very interesting presentations, and we got some very good engagement from the people in the airlines who are responsible for payments. I managed to be in that stream for most of the time. I don't know if any of you guys were able to observe any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I opened it and I closed it, and I came in for about 10 minutes of one of the sessions, but running from meeting to meeting as I was, I didn't get to see certainly all the sessions I would have liked to have seen.
It's in the app, Bert. You'll be able to watch it back.
I will. Thank you very much for that reminder. The content is available in the app. So in my copious free time, I will be able to go back and relive some of the great panels and sessions. But I think, again, judging by the feedback we've had from that, and certainly qualified by the fact that this is a completely new stream for us, new track of data, I'm very pleased with year one of payments. And I think the attendees seemed pretty appreciative of the content as well.
Yeah, I mean, as usual, and maybe not all of our listeners will understand this, but as usual, the evening the conference closed, we started the planning for next year. And we had a pretty good discussion. And I think one of the things that came out of that discussion is that running a payments track was certainly a successful innovation, and it is something we will do again next year. Whether it takes exactly the same form as it did this year is still open for discussion, but it will be there. So if you're working in an airline and you're involved with payment or settlement, you definitely need to be thinking about Engage 2026.
Yeah. It definitely caused some ripples. So we've had at least one provider, let's say, who has contacted us since and said, hey, we heard you had a payments track this year. We'd love to be involved next year. And I think it is one of those things where you've got to start doing something to create an impact and then ride the wave of that to the next version of it. So
yeah, I agree completely. In fact, one of the vendors who did have an exhibition stand, but otherwise was just there to listen, did say to me very clearly, we want to be on the platform in the payments track next year because we think we've got something to share with the industry. And I said, absolutely fine. You make your proposition to us, and we'll be creating the agenda. Yeah, maybe not in the next few weeks, but certainly in the next couple of months, we'll be putting together the outline agenda for next year. The other innovation, which is now 2 or 3 years old, Ian, is involvement of the travel sellers. You've already alluded to it a little bit. I think the travel seller workshop this year, which we split into 2 parts, one which did involve airline distribution people and one which was just the travel sellers. Again, I think it was a very useful thing to do. And I think most of the travel sellers who took part think that there is value in doing this.
Yeah, I think that's right. We, as you said, we had some good debate between travel sellers and airlines about all things NDC and how we go forward into the world of offer, order, settle, deliver, and lots of focus on, can we communicate more? Can we collaborate? The more we kind of share at least the technical challenges we face, the better. I mean, obviously there's always commercial discussions which happen separately, but people are very keen to share thoughts and knowledge on how do we make the technology work best for everybody involved in that distribution value chain. And yeah, generally the request from the travel sellers to us is, can you kind of help? If there's more things that you can do, we bring lots of good people together to our conference, and we work with many airlines globally. Most the travel sellers are generally saying, please, can you help us figure out how to encourage and support this collaboration more? We think you can support this process. So we'll think a lot about that. And if there are airlines that have got views on how they would want to engage with travel sellers, if we can help with that, or travel sellers listening who would want to be involved, please do contact us.
Yeah, and they've been coming for a couple of years to the conference, and I do remember sort of the first year when they came in numbers, and one of the big messages not from them to us, but from them to the attendees was, don't forget about us. Please come and talk to us. Please come and involve us in the conversation. And I think it's really gratified that actually they've continued coming to the conference. And I get a sense that they feel that their voices are being heard and that they're able to engage in meaningful conversations. Because it's not just where the smart people come, but it's also where the influential people come. People who are making decisions daily about distribution strategy and so on are in the room. So it's been, I think, judging by the fact that they keep coming back, a good forum for travel sellers, and I hope that continues.
Yeah,
and I certainly think a couple of the 5 promises are very relevant to the travel sellers. Especially the ones around efficiency and customer experience. I think the travel sellers would like. Probably, it's fair to say they'd like to see a bit more progress on those 2 promises, and we can help provide the space for discussion of that to enable more progress on those things.
Yeah. So speaking of customer experience, I was going to say one of the things that I thought was very positive is that there's been more of a shift to talking about customer experience. You know, I can remember for the longest time we've talked about OOSD and we've talked about bundling and dynamic pricing and so on. And then customer, you sort of look on the list of benefits and it would say things like single booking reference for the entire journey. And that would be it. There would be like one customer talking point. But actually, as people have moved into the delivery, the act of delivery is forcing them to think about, how do we redesign processes? How do we redesign organizations? And the answer is from the outside in, from the customer experience first, from the business outcome first. And actually, I think that's one of the things that's changed as we've moved into this delivering on the promise phase, is that actually having to go and do this rather than talk about it has forced people to decide where their priority focuses are. So I think that's really positive.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I heard, sorry.
No, go on, Amanda.
One of the best quotes that I heard, I think, throughout the course of the event was from Sean from Inc. Innovation. And he was talking about challenging legacy by asking why like a child. So stripping everything back and just going, well, what's really realistic and meaningful for the customer? And I thought that was really encapsulated the essence of customer experience in the era of OOSD.
Okay, so I think that's a great note on which to wrap this up. Next year at Engage 26, I think we'll be asking why like a child a bit more often. At least I hope so. So for all of the people listening to this, I need you to get your calendars out and set the dates of 21st to the 23rd of September 2026, when T2RL Engage 2026 will be back at the Sancroft Centre in the City of London. I hope that we'll see even more of you there than we had this year, but not too many more, because as I say, we think we're at about the right size. So get your registrations in early as soon as it opens. For now, I'd just like to thank Ian and Bert and Amanda for joining me, and I'd like to thank you for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again in the next edition of T2RL Talks.